Hey everybody, let me make sure I'm lined up here. Yeah, that's pretty good. Happy Wednesday to everybody. I finished the Sunday games, week 7 of my 1982 Windows replay last night. So I thought I would share a stats update here with you. It's my B project, of course, my A project, the 1966 Card and Dice replay, which is streamed live here, generally at 1:30 p.m. Pacific every day. The 82 Windows replay I'm doing on my own and making good progress through 7 weeks. You can knock out the games on Windows pretty quickly. You could play 4 games in roughly an hour, about 15 minutes a game, give or take. And sometimes I'll just be sitting around watching TV and I'll knock out 3 or 4 games sitting on the couch. Got MLB Network going on here behind me. So anyway, let's get to the stats. I'm going to hook this up and hopefully aim it at the laptop. So let's try it here. Whoops. There we go. That's pretty good. Okay, good. Let me move my coffee over and we'll see what we've got here. Okay, let's start out with league stats, American League. Enlarge that. And there you go. You should be looking at the American League standings right now. Seems to me I could be zoomed in a little better. That's a little too much now. There, that looks pretty good. Okay. So, we've got the Red Sox 4 games up on the Brewers. We see the Indians and the Yankees 5 back, the Blue Jays 5.5 back. Tigers and Orioles 6 back. It's still a 6-team race in the AL East. In the West, 4-team race, maybe 5. We have the Royals are 2 games up on the White Sox and the Angels, with the Twins 5.5 back. Mariners 6.5 back at 18 and 26, not having much hope for them at this point. And we've got the A's and the Rangers bringing up the rear. Over in the National League, we find the Cardinals with a 2-game lead on the Phillies, 4 ahead of the Pirates. Mets just 4.5 out, Expos 5, and Cubs 6. So everybody's pretty much in it. In the West, it's pretty much a 2-team race between the Dodgers and the Braves. Dodgers have a 4.5-game lead on the Braves. Giants creeping into the picture now at 20 and 23. What's interesting to look at sometimes, too, I like to, is the last 10 games. I was looking at the Giants the other day. See, the Giants have won 7 of their last 10. So they were off to a miserable start, and they've been coming on as late. So I would expect them to be more involved in this race based on the real-life standings. And welcome, Sports Time Machine. The Reds have also played a little. No, they've gone the other way. I take that back. The Reds have lost 8 of their last 10, and they're falling out of the race. The Padres and the Astros, not much hope there for those teams. Let's go back to the American League and look at the same thing, kind of the who's hot and who's not. Cardinals have won 8 out of 10. I'm still in the National League. Dodgers 7 out of 10. The Reds and the Padres have dropped 8 out of their last 10. Looking at the American League. Whoops. Bear with me here. Okay, league stats. American League, enlarge that. Blue Jays have won 7 out of 10. Royals 7 out of 10. Sorry, Royals 8 out of their last 10. That's how they took over the lead, actually. Brewers 7 out of 10. The Red Sox pulling away have won 8 of their last 10. Let's see what the White Sox and the Angels have done. Chicago's 500. And where the hell's California? They won 6 of their last 10. So let's take Mike. Yeah, sorry, Mike. I know I can't. I'm trying to remember that. Hope your day is going well. Yeah, I just got bored and thought, well, hell, I'm through week 7. Let's take a look at the league leaders, my favorite. We could also look at the first ground totals. You can see who's batting. Boston with a 296 team average. I won't spend a whole lot of time on that. You can look at these later. Team run average, the Yankees have pitched very well. As you can see, they don't hit much. But they're right in the race. Red Sox pitching really good and hitting great, so no wonder they're doing well. 3.94 is the league ERA, so Cleveland would be average. Anything above that, pretty good. National League, Cubs and Phillies batting well. Of course, runs scored is what you really want to look at. St. Louis 213, trailing only the Cubs in runs scored. Pitching league ERA slightly lower in the National League. Dodgers and Expos top the league in pitching. Padres are pitching well despite having a poor record as a team. Interesting. Anyway, here's the league leaders, okay? Some surprises here. Of course, remember, we're still very early. Bo Diaz leading the league in batting. That's kind of a surprise. Couple of Cubs there, Buckner and Durham. Joe Morgan, who seems to have almost nothing but walks on his card, somehow hitting 352. And then you got Bill Russell, who didn't really have a good year in 82, hitting 331. So yeah, we got some fluky performances early on. Let's see what Mike is saying here. I got to slide this down. Yes, we can do that too. Let's go back to that. Here's your actual 1 loss, and here's your actual to-date 1 loss, okay? This is National League. St. Louis, an identical record to where they were after 42 games in real life. Phillies 1 game better. The Pirates 3 games worse. The Mets 3 games worse. The Expos 1 game worse. The Cubs 1 game better. Dodgers 7 games better than real life, with the Braves 3 games worse. So there's your difference. You can see by the final record, they were only a game apart. The Giants actually are a game ahead of their pace at this point in real life, and they finished with 87 wins. Cincinnati 18-16. San Diego really underachieving, as is Houston. In the American League, where the hell am I? There we go. Boston, despite the 27-14 start, actually 1 game behind their start in 82. Brewers 2 games ahead of their pace in real life. Cleveland 5 games ahead of their pace in real life. The Yankees 1 game, pretty close. Toronto 4 games ahead. Detroit's 5 games underachieving. Baltimore is pretty close. Kansas City, the exact record they had in real life at this point in time. White Sox really underachieving. They're 6 games worse than they were on this date. And the Angels also 6 games worse than they were on this date. The Twins are 7 games better. Seattle's pretty close. Oakland's 3 games under. When I say 3 games under, I mean replay record versus actual to-date 1 lost. Texas is actually pretty close. Texas was just bad that year. Actually, Minnesota had the worst record. Texas, the 2nd worst record. And that was a good idea, Mike. Okay, let's see. Let's go back to the league leaders. Batting, of course, and then you got, runs scored. Sandberg, Matthews, Lonnie Smith, Omar Moreno. Keith Hernandez rounds out the top 5. Bill Buckner leading in hits. Buckner's having a great season through, about a quarter of the season we played, I guess, at this point. 40 or so games. Ray Knight leads in doubles, with Darrell Evans and John Stearns right behind him with 14. This is Julio Gonzalez, okay? 4 triples ties him with the lead. It's just with De Jesus. Gonzalez had less than 100 at-bats from the year, so he will disappear from that list by season's end. I'm not sure what happened to him. That's kind of a fluky performance. Here's the big numbers, of course. Home runs and RBI. Schmidt now leading with 11. That should come as no surprise. Bob Horner and Pedro Guerrero with 10 right behind him. Then you've got George Hendrick with Madlock, Bo Diaz, Dusty Baker, Joe Morgan, Bill Buckner rounding out the leaders with 7 home runs. Bo Diaz shows up again in RBIs. Diaz leading in batting and RBIs, the Philly catcher. Horner, Buckner, Durham, and Guerrero rounding out the top 5. Then you've got walks. You can see there intentional walks. More intentional walks than in my 66 replay, simply because, and I've explained this before, but it bears repeating. In this replay, I manage the home team always, and I let Hal, or the AI, or the computer, whatever you want to call it, manage the road games. And one thing I've noticed is Hal likes to walk people intentionally, much more than I do. I kind of eschew the intentional walk for the most part. Another thing about Hal is really clutch sensitive, and I'm using all the advanced, the max rules or whatnot. Actually, I'm using super advanced with ballpark and clutch, I believe. Boy, now I can't even remember. Anyway, Hal will walk a guy with a plus clutch sometimes to face a better hitter, which I would never do. But I've seen it done. Steals, there's Bump Wills, Maury's kid, Lonnie Smith, and Mookie Wilson with 20. No active hitting streak. There's Diaz again. He had a 15-gamer. Slugging and on base. Slugging percentage, Joe Morgan leading at .598. That's impressive. Diaz, Durham, Guerrero, and Buckner rounding out the top 5. In on base, it's Lonnie Smith at .465. Look at the on base leaders. My God, you got all these guys could get on base. Bull Durham, Gary Matthews, Jason Thompson. There's Diaz again. Keith Hernandez, Buckner, Cesar Cedeno, Stearns, Baker, Jack Clark. John Stearns, the Met catcher. A catcher who could run, right? A rarity in baseball and Strat-O-Matic. We can skip over the X percentage leaders. Pitching categories, Fernando Valenzuela with 8 wins. Joaquin Andujar with 7. All these guys are on a great pace when you think it's only about a quarter of the year. Carlton, Tim Lawler, Scott Sanderson, Randy Jones with 6 wins. We also have 5 6-game losers. Earned run average, well, we've got to have a Jim Duckworth story in every league, don't we? And here it's actually a Tommy Sisk story is what I should say. That would be a more accurate comparison. Here it's Bill Lasky of the Giants with a 0.91 ERA. Scott Sanderson, Joe Cowley, Charlie Lee, and Joaquin Andujar round out the top 5. Steve Carlton leading with 5 complete games. In saves, Steve Howe with 11, Bruce Sutter with 10. That should come as no surprise. And then we have a bunch of guys with 6. 1, 2, 3, 6 starting pitchers have 2 shutouts. In strikeouts, Steve Carlton leading with 79, just ahead of Mario Soto with 77. Fernando Valenzuela and Nolan Ryan and Bob Welch round out the top 5. Let's jump over to the American League, and we can look at the same thing here. In the American League, we find another slow guy, right? You have Bo Diaz leading and batting in the National League. In the American League, we've got Greg Luzinski hitting .377, Kurt Gibson .364, Damaso Garcia .353, Steve Kemp .340, Bobby Grich and Tom Paciorek at .336 round out the top 5. Ricky Henderson leading the league in runs scored. That should not be a surprise. Wait till we get down to the stolen base numbers. Holy cow. Luzinski with 17 doubles leading in that category. Robin Yount, Damaso Garcia with 13, with Grich, Lynn, and Frank White tied with 12, rounding out the top 5. Hal McRae has 7 triples already. Think about that for a second. At that pace, he's on pace for about 28 triples. In fact, that's going to make me have to look at that card. Let's take a look at that. He only hit 8 in real world. Let's see his triples chances. None against lefties. Holy cow. Okay, so he's got like 2, just under 3. Wow. Yeah, nothing in that card would suggest 7 triples at this point in time. But again, that's what can happen in a small sample size. Yeah, he does. We can look at Murphy, too. He's batting .301. 376 on base. Again, the blue here, of course, is the replay number. The white is the real-life numbers. So he is underachieving a bit, but not as much as I might have thought. He's underachieving in home runs, to be sure, with just 6. But the batting and the on-base are there. The slugging's a little off. Plenty of time for Murphy to get going. In home runs, it's Reggie Jackson and Jim Rice with 12. Ken Herbeck, 11. Cecil Cooper, Willie Upshaw, Toby Harrah, and Lance Parrish round out the leaders with 10. Cooper leading in RBIs with 42. Jim Rice, 37. Then we have Herbeck, Parrish, and Jackson rounding out the top 5. Here we go. Look at the steals. Henderson, 45 steals. He is on a mission. Oh, well, thanks for pointing that out, Bob. I wasn't looking at that screen. Yeah, I can see where it would do that. I don't know how to make that go away. Pop out chat. That doesn't do anything. Live chat. And if I kill that, that won't work. Interesting. So what I need to do is the ones we're looking at, we got to move them up near the top of the screen. That's the best way to get around that. But I thank you for pointing that out. Anyway, Ricky with 45 steals. Damaso Garcia, 32. Then we have more normal totals. Julio Cruz, John Wathan, Dwayne Murphy, Miguel Delaney, Kurt Gibson with a dozen. Willie Wilson has a 15-game active hitting streak. Longest hitting streak of the season, 21 by Bobby Grich. Slugging and on base, Gary Renicky. Wow, how about that? Gary Renicky in slugging at 625, Lazinski 609, then Cecil Cooper, Fred Lynn, and Jim Rice round out the top 5. In on-base percentage, it's Dwight Evans and Greg Lazinski topping the league. Gary Renicky in third. Bobby Grich and Rod Carew round out the top 5. And again, look at these on-base numbers. My goodness, even Thornton down here, 393 on base. Renicky barely leading Lazinski in on-base plus slugging. Gibson, Paul Molitor, and Fred Lynn. Let's go down to the pitching leaders here. Luis Leal with 8 wins for Toronto. Mike Caldwell, Scott McGregor, and Jack Morris with 6. Yeah, absolutely, Rick. He did indeed. I think he was the MVP that year, wasn't he? Two 7-game losers, Clancy and Huff. Earned run average, Dennis Eckersley with a minuscule 1.55. Quisenberry's been the only reliever to make the ERA qualifying list, 2.09. Boy, that Quisenberry was a workhorse out of the pen. Rubber arm. Mike Torres, Pete Vukovich, and Leal round out the top 5. In saves, Goose Gossage pacing the league with 12. Bill Cottle of Seattle. That's a good card, too. It's a nasty card. 8 saves. Raleigh Fingers, Dan Quisenberry, and Ron Davis with half a dozen round out the top 5. Eckersley's thrown 3 shutouts. Leonard and Jim Beattie 2 each. And in strikeouts, we have Guidry leading the league with 53, just 3 ahead of his teammate Dave Rigetti with 50. Floyd Bannister, Brad Havens, and John Denny round out the top 5. Well, that's pretty much all I've got for the 82 stats update. It's a lot of fun. Well, damn it. Okay, my apologies. It looks like we are back. Temporarily lost internet. That was not me. That was my internet. Yeah, thanks, Mike. I lost internet there for a couple minutes. And I see the circle going again. Are we back? Can anyone confirm? The television's back on. It's connected to the internet. Perhaps that's the problem. Hang on, let me try something. All right, I turned off the television. Maybe it was a case of having too many devices streaming at one time. That's possible. That's something to learn from. I'll keep that in mind. Oftentimes I do have the TV on when I'm doing my stream for the 66 season, so I'm going to stop doing that. I'll turn that off. That could speed up the connection a bit. So yeah, unless anybody has anything else, I'm going to get out of here. Hope you enjoyed the 82 stats update. I'll be back in about an hour and a half with the 1966 game of the day. That's going to be the second game of the doubleheader. That is Red Sox at Twins, 1:30 Pacific time. So thanks for checking in on me with the 82 update, and I'll catch you all later. Take care, everybody.